We are carrying on our study in the Gospel of Matthew. In this study, we're going to look at Matthew chapter 2 and verses 1 and 2. Now, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we saw his star in the east, and are come to worship him. The Magi have become one of the great symbols of the Christmas season. The problem, of course, is we really know nothing about them. Tradition says that there were 3 of them, and each of them are given a name. Henry Van Dyke, the American writer and cleric, published a wonderful story in 1895 about the 4th wise man. Van Dyke's story is an example of how traditions can grow, develop, and take a life of their own on. Now, in the last point, I'm not talking about Van Dyke's story. I'm referring to the assumption that there were just 3 wise men. The fact is, we really do not know how many wise men there were. The idea that there were 3 comes from the fact that there were 3 gifts: frankincense, gold, and myrrh. 3 gifts, 3 wise men. Tradition says that they came from Persia, and that is a good guess, but that at the end of the day is all it is. It is a guess. The second point has a bearing on the first. If they traveled from a distance, then it makes sense that it was a good-sized party. It was not the case that traveling was a safe and carefree activity in the first century, especially over a great distance. So a larger party would help to ensure security, safety, so on. So there was a handful of magi maybe, and a group of people around them to meet their needs, care for things, animals. What we do know is that these magi were not Jews. Look at the question in verse 2. This is not the question of a Jew. What the magi point to is the great promise of the Old Testament, that the nations would come to Zion seeking God. So you can, for example, turn to Isaiah chapter 56 and verses 3 to 8. And the focus on the number of magi and even where they came from, we can lose sight of the fulfillment of the promise of the Old Testament. Matthew, out of all the gospel, alone records the story of the Magi. It is interesting in light of the Jewishness of his gospel that he tells how Gentiles came seeking the King of the Jews. It is a case that Matthew here is telling of this event because it fits into a larger pattern of how the life and ministry of Jesus is the fulfillment of the Old Testament. Now notice that the word king is used by these people. What does a king have? Well, a king has a kingdom. You see, the kingdom of God is an all-inclusive kingdom. Now notice what the key is. One has to seek it. There is a bit of mystery about it. We have these people seeking for the king, but others who should have are not. What these magi were able to do was read the signs. We think of the star. It was there for others to see, but it was not plain and obvious. The kingdom of God is like that in every generation. It is not that it cannot be found or seen. It is not that there are no signs and proofs. Some see the signs and come check out what is happening, while many others are too absorbed in their lives and in their world. Yes, the kingdom of God is for all. That is, all who come seeking for it.